Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation?
Mind spins and spirals like the cogito. I think, therefore, but do I even know? Hume said the sun might not rise in the morning. Patterns ain't proof, just habits we adorn. Russell's teapot floating out in the void. Invisible doubts that can't be destroyed. Belief ain't a bird and the skeptic employs. Question the noise, the cosmos ploys. Skeptic's eyes always peeping the fraud. Truth ain't handed down, it's wrestled from the gods. Doubts my temple, my faith is flawed. Think it through twice before I applaud. Induction wobbles like a table with no leg. Hume's knife cuts leave certainty begging. A billion white swans, blood black renegade. Shatter the mirror, the cracks cascade. Cogito feels strong, but is it really? Thoughts build castles, clouds act silly. Russell's pot spins in the ether so freely. Prove it exists or the claim's too dreamy. Am I the dreamer or the dream in the show? The car wrestled devils, still didn't know. Faith and senses, they play tricks on a low. Truth's a mirage in a desert of woe.
When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Hola! Hello, everyone, and welcome to Skeptic Philosophy. As always, I am your host, Robert. Thank you for stopping by. It is open chat today, so anyone and everyone is welcome in, theist, atheist alike. If there's something that you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to pop in. I'll pick a random subject to kind of speak on until we get some people coming in, and we can divert from this subject or we can tackle it a little deeper. But that being said, it is open chat. I've gotten where it's getting fairly easy for me to schedule guests to book all of these different Sundays. So I'm still trying to keep one Sunday per month open for open chat because I like engaging with people that you never know who's going to come in. And I always kind of want to keep that window open so that anyone can come in and have a conversation, especially theists. And more particularly, I'd love to talk to pastors and preachers and see their thoughts and maybe give a little pushback and see kind of where things fall out and what their motivations are. I think there's a stigmatism, especially in atheist circles, that many of the preachers and pastors are doing this from a dishonest position and that they know that this thing isn't true. And I've heard this many times, and I try to get pushback on it the majority of the time that I hear it, because I believe people genuinely are sincere, and they're sincere on both sides. And the problem is both sides of this conversation are regularly saying, yeah, you're unsincere on this. They're either the theist is saying, no, you have to believe that there is some kind of God, or the atheist is saying, no, there's no way that you really believe this, that it's just not possible. And I'd like to talk on that a little bit. Simos, what's
Hello,
happening, man?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I'm on a different screen. Oh yeah, there we go. Hello.
Hey.
Yeah. What can I say? Yeah. Hello. That's about
How's
it.
going,
That's
man?
all I've got so far.
I hear you. So far, so good.
Yeah.
As the old Jerry Clower joke says, so far, so good. That was the one where he was falling. He was falling down the window, but it was like, so it's good so far until we get to the bottom.
I like. I said to my dad once. I said, he said, what do you want to be when you grow up, son? I said, I want to be immortal. And he said, oh, how's that going for you? I said, so far, so good.
Perfect. I used to always say a lottery winner when the teacher would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lottery winner. Just seemed like the easiest thing, not put any work into it.
Okay.
So as of late, I ran into this little, it's called a problem of equivalence. That's so philosophical term. It come out of a group called Pyrrhonism. And equivalence was like a philosophical problem of, we got a few people starting to come into the side chat here. I'm going to go ahead and bring them in, but I wanted to mention this first. It was this problem of equal power between gods. It was done from an ancient kind of skeptic position that if all of these gods are proposed and they're all equal in power or of significance, how is the skeptic to choose which one is right or wrong? And it's less so a thing of saying none of these are right, and it's more so a problem of, let's assume that something is right, but how can we know which one is right? Obviously they overlap one another, and if we're trying to assign equal relevance to all of them, all of these different people believe they have these religious experiences. So how do we address which one's right?
I see.
But,
Yeah.
Kurt, how's it going, man? And Scott, what's up?
I'm doing good. I think the Greek term for that is epoche, or withholding judgment.
Yeah, for the
Pyrrhonism,
I think you're right. Yeah.
And that was resurrected by Edmund Husserl, the German phenomenologist, to say that he was going to bracket everything except consciousness.
Right.
And do an investigation of consciousness itself, which of course I don't think exists. So I think that's interesting.
Well, I stumbled onto a little short video. Was a gentleman that was saying that he was seeking God, and that his problem wasn't the problem of the skeptic, rather it was the problem of equivalence. And that it's not that he found none of these religions convincing, it's that he's found several of them equally convincing, was his problem. And a lot of that's his criteria, obviously, for convincing. But when you try to bring the bar of criteria down, it's not like just one slips in, right? It's when you bring the bar of criteria down and you set, okay, well, we'll accept this as evidence. Several religions come in simultaneously. So then it's like, okay, well, which one's right? And now there's a problem.
And the poor Zoroastrians, they don't do any proselytizing anymore. But if you're looking for a salvation religion, Zoroastrianism is pretty kick-ass.
Yeah. What do you get there? I mean, y'all, obviously you get eternal life.
You get the eternal heaven and the good God and everything. And there's an eternal fight between the good God and the evil God. They never have a final, full disputation. They're equally powerful. And then the Saoshyant is the Messiah. And when he comes at the end of time, he sets up a system where the evil God can't get in anymore.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because of the equal power is what makes it obviously different from, most of your Abrahamic religions. Is it makes and I say the Abrahamic, obviously the original.
Yeah, but they all stole.
Sure, absolutely. But absolutely. But then it was still a secondary. He was still an angel that had fallen. No matter how much power you want to imbue upon him, there's this idea that he is a created thing. Whereas I think Zoroastrianism is these are. I don't remember if it's two emergent powers or that it was powers that were always in a dynamic struggle, and that's how life come about. Do you know the origin of the life as far as this power struggle? And has the power struggle always been the case?
Yeah, that's the Zoroastrian views. There's always been a struggle, but the struggle is happening in the layers of heaven above the earth, and that's to some degree what Paul is talking about when he say we struggle not against the rulers, but the principalities and the powers of this age. And the idea in Zoroastrianism was each land had a ruler in the heaven above it that would vie with the other rulers of heaven. And the divine council that's mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures is probably at least come from a Zoroastrian idea of divine fights within the council of the
gods.
High.
Well, and you get this, it seems like when you go back to the Egyptian gods and any of these gods, that there's a pantheon, all of these pantheons, there's always these gods are in equal position in large part, but there's always one that like covers the largest land or the most influential one, and everybody on the outside is kind of arguing, yeah, really my God should be the one that is the main one that is over the pantheon. And we get a little bit of that even in the Old Testament, arguing for Yahweh to be the one that is over the control of the total pantheon. He should be recognized as the head of the group.
I always recommend to keep your pantsy on.
What?
Keep your pantsy on.
Yeah.
I think there is. I mean, the Canaanites had a pantheon, right? Of which I think
For sure.
El was the highest.
Well, there was El Kunirsa, who was the god of the tents, who has a lot of similarities with the final form of the Jewish god. And then there was also an El of like Ugarit, El Safon, who's described as being at the top of a specific mountain. And there's actually a phrase in the Hebrew scriptures that talks about the El at the top of a famous northern mountain. But there is no like Jewish idea of God being on any northern mountain at all. So there's a question as to whether that text is referring to the Ugaritic El Zaphon, which I find interesting.
Yes. I mean, that's my best guess. Although that idea, I seem to remember there was an idea that Israel and Judea were like the Old Testament. I say the Old Testament, the Talmud, is it? I can't remember what they call it. Comes from a clashing or a splicing
The
together.
Torah, yeah.
The Torah comes together, a splicing of the two tribes, kind of mythology.
Right. Yeah, there's a Yahweh of Samaria in the archaeological record, and he would be a Yahweh of Mount Gerizim, and there would be a separate Yahweh of Mount Zion.
Yeah, one's Egyptian influenced, and the other is Babylonian and
Assyrian influence, yeah.
Assyrian. Okay, yeah.
So I want to bring in a quick video just to get a response on this. It's a short, and this is kind of what made me pick this subject to kind of open up, and we can go anywhere with the subject that anyone wants to. But I just wanted you to see this and see what your thoughts were on it. Let's see if I can put it on the screen here. There we go. Again, it's a short.
I'm desperately trying to be religious for reasons that I won't go into. I'm very interested in the afterlife and what happens to us. The issue I have is that most people aren't religious now because they don't think any religions are coherent. I think too many of them are coherent. So I grew up as a Protestant. From the first person perspective, I obviously studied some theology, like Augustine, Aquinas, Gerard, of course. The issue is, I had the same experience with Buddhism. I also practiced Buddhism for about 2 or 3 years, and I studied with its great theologians. And it has set up a problem of what the ancient skeptics called equipollence, right? That there are two competing and incommensurable theories or frameworks, and there's no way for me to choose between those. So my problem of religion is very different from the regular moderns' problem of not being able to believe, right? Where they don't find anything convincing. I almost find too much coherent. I'm desperate.
Anyway.
Oh my goodness, it makes me laugh. Yeah, I mean, I think the atheists normally respond to something like that is like if they are if they're mutually exclusive, they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong.
Right.
So like, and he's saying, well, there's two that seem kind of right. I mean, I can't pick between them. Well,
I would love to see that guy walk onto my car dealership lot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, B.S. Lewis, Pixie, how's it going?
Howdy.
Hello. I'm gonna wait because I only came up here because you said something kind of interesting earlier, and I want to touch on that, but I don't want to derail anything. So I'm gonna
not very interesting, but kinda.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, it depends on where it goes when we talk about it, right? I don't know yet.
Well, it's about a once a year thing when I hit sort of interesting. So I think you've been complimented. So anyway, no, I was just to see this guy's spreadsheet on where he was actually balancing out the pros and cons of each religion. We have Western theology, which kind of tries to be rational and have coherency and things, But you don't get that in Buddhism, at least the ones, I've, and of course I'm obviously no expert on Buddhism, but they kind of sit in the tension between opposites, between things that can't be, A and not A at the same time, and so on and so forth. And that's the place to be for a Buddhist. So, they have those cones, which makes you think about all these weird, hard to conceive things in order to bring you some sort of spiritual good. So I just want to see his spreadsheet that makes them all equal, because I don't think you can give them equal power or equal weight. The thing is, there's so many that are different that you could spend quite a few years exploring, and it's a good way to occupy your time, but you're not obtaining any kind of rationality, I don't think, in either pursuit. Am I being too skeptical?
I don't think so. I wanted to let people know that we do only have 6 at one time. Someone buzzed earlier, but I don't get to see them. Eventually, I'm going to wind up paying for this membership. I guess here we go. It's Simos in and out and back in. How's it going? But with that said, I guess Pixie, what's up? What would you hear earlier that you thought was interesting?
You said that people accuse them of not believing what they teach, and then you alluded that you push back on that. So you think their beliefs are sincere, correct? I do. The vast majority, I think their beliefs are sincere. Okay. Do you think you can choose your beliefs?
This is a works at different scales kind of conversation. Can you choose anything at the largest scale of whether determinism is the case or not? Can you choose your beliefs? No, I would say for the most part, you cannot. But can you choose things that you set as a criteria for you to hold a thing to be the case? I think you can consciously say, I set this as a criteria before I could believe something. And you set these criteria, and then you push your beliefs against that and see if they work. Does that make sense?
Well, sure, but I think inherently we're going to fail to hold that consistency. Every one of us. You can have things that meet that threshold, but just don't convince you because of other things. And you can be convinced by things that fall below that threshold. And so, especially when something's unfalsifiable, right?
Okay.
And so
it's something like the falsifiability standard. Like, I think you can choose to say, I'm going to accept the falsifiability standard. And if there's something that I have that doesn't meet that standard, then maybe I need to reevaluate it.
I think this is a great conversation. I want to dispute both a little bit,
positions?
But mostly agree with Pixie.
Okay.
I mean, I think you can.
Cohen does this. What's his name? Andrew Cohen? Is that his name?
John
Cohen. There you go. Does this unconvinced, and I think this has made this more prevalent in the conversations that we're having here. So I think there's a lot of truth to it, and I think there's a lot of writers that have wrote on the subject. To some degree, though, how can we rectify that with states of change? And by that, I mean hard fought states of change. Like we believe this to be true, but we're really struggling with it. And we don't know that we should justifiably believe it to be true. And then we transition from this belief to not believing this thing. How is this transition of states possible if in the strictest sense that we can't control what we believe?
See, that's where you lose me. And I think you lose me there because unlike a lot of people in this quote unquote community, I don't have a deconversion story, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in it just like everybody else. One of my heroes, my grandfather was a preacher. I was in the church thing, but I don't have a deconversion story. I never could make myself believe. Now, everybody would tell me, just read the book, just pray, just read the book, just pray. Because the one thing everybody can agree on is that you can choose with what to inform your beliefs. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I agree there. But even as a kid, without access to additional information, trying to make myself believe giving myself access to only the things that would make myself believe, I still could not force myself to be convinced. I have never been able to believe, right? Now, people say, well, it's a choice, but I've made the choice to believe, and I clearly failed without any additional information. Now, when I come across additional information, I think, that sounds a little more plausible. That makes a little more sense. But I still have a tendency to be like, what if this part of it's wrong? Or what if that's part of it's wrong? Or what if we got it wrong here? And I'm that way about everything. So sure, you can choose with what to inform your beliefs, but can you actively choose to be convinced or not convinced?
Hey, Pixie, are you speaking in reference to belief in Christianity or any given belief system?
I went through a lot. I looked at Christianity. I looked at the Zoroastrians. I looked at Baha'i. I looked at Omnism. Omnism was maybe my last ditch attempt to try to, I always say I can grasp it, but I can't hold it, you know? So I think maybe Omnism was like my last ditch attempt. But you know, it's not for lack of seeking, right? That whole seek and you shall find. Evidently not.
Right.
So if I can't choose to believe, can someone choose not to?
Well, see, you did the right thing in that you sought different forms of, I guess, what we'll call spirituality or religion. You informed yourself of a wide variety of competing traditions or families of belief. I think a lot of the advice we get from preachers or whatever in Christianity is, just look at the Christian stuff. That's all you need. Just read all the different Christian viewpoints, and you'll come across something you like. Now I can't say that. I don't know that many liberal theologians or preachers, and so I really am not personally informed about what they would advise me. But I just cannot see the pastor of First Baptist Church of somewhere in the USA telling me to study Baha'ism or to study Islam or to study Buddhism and get informed of their religious or thought environment. So of course you've done the wide spectrum there. Maybe there's nothing to believe. Maybe that's the point of it all.
Maybe, but if I can't make myself believe, if I can't make myself be convinced, can somebody make themselves be unconvinced?
So, Pixie, your experience is so similar to my sister. She's 3 years older than I am. We both grew up in a really high control, really tight religious environment. And she just never took it seriously ever and really couldn't even bother to think about it. Whereas I took it very, very seriously because I had a fairly deep affinity for like the aesthetics around it. And I think that may be part of it. Like we can't choose what we find compelling, and we can't even choose what to focus our attention on. But once we find a given thing like an affinity for us and we focus our attention on it, then I think that's how the beliefs get like changed, right? We may examine one belief critically, and then there would be a different belief that we don't examine critically if we have that affinity. And that's not like necessarily choosing your belief. And it's definitely not like I'm going to look at this with like a cold, clear view and see where, but you may decide, well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to instead go down this rabbit hole, which is what I see happening with someone like Jim Bob, right? Jim Bob's investigating evolution, but he's not investigating it to find out what's going on. He's investigating it to pursue an affinity. And that's like, I think, a sort of threading of that needle between the two positions.
Yeah. Why didn't I consider Islam? I did consider Islam very briefly, very shortly. I did not take it seriously. I could not take it seriously. And there were far too many handprints of humans.
Yeah, it's not. It's like,
I think the only thing any religion has thoroughly convinced me of is that if a God does indeed exist, the most disheartening thought I can ever think of is that any of us got close to right. But still, that, no, just no. And I'm far too defiant for that type of thing. So,
Could this be something similar, this whole phenomenon of convincing yourself or unconvincing yourself of something. Could that be similar to the supposed phenomenon of self-hypnosis? There was a trend for a while for people to like learn to quit smoking, through self-hypnosis. And there's actually statistics from the National Institutes of Health on people who are highly hypnotizable, moderately responsive to hypnotism, and low susceptibility. I wonder if being able to convince yourself is actually a phenomenon that falls on a gradient, and that there is a certain number of people out there who can fool themselves, and if they engaged in trying to convince themselves, might actually be quite successful. If you're talking, Silas, I can't hear you.
I don't have trouble following laws. I have
gradient.
trouble insisting that thought crimes are actual laws.
So two things I wanted to mention right quick. The bad faith kind of interlocutor thing that I was mentioning a moment ago, we're seeing on the bottom of the screen presently, the proposition that this other side doesn't believe because insert bad faith argument, right? So this is the one that I was talking about. They can't believe that. So now this one is they're denying something that they do believe because they don't want to obey the laws, which are. This is the kind of things that I'm talking. I do see it on both sides, but I will say that I see it far, far more often myself on the theistic side, that the proposition is that you have to know that this God thing is true. And then they insert ulterior motives as to why you deny the thing, as well as you see presently.
Yeah, that sounds like
stop suppressing the truth, Robert.
I have no gods because I haven't met any.
Yeah. Hey, B.S. Lewis has been relatively quiet here. I wanted to hear from him a little bit. How's it going, B.S.?
Oh, that comment you showed just reminds me of like sovereign citizens. I'll just pretend the cops don't exist so I don't have to follow the laws.
Right.
It doesn't really interest me at all if we can choose or not to believe a thing, because I'm pretty hard deterministic. It's more a self-reflection for myself. How can I tell if I'm deluded? If I'm suffering from fixed false beliefs.
Yeah. So a lot of it for me is what can we believe or not believe in the face of something new? Like I might hold a univocality position like many theists that we've seen before, and then I might run into two apparently contradictory verses, and now I'm seeing the contradiction in the literature, and can I continuously hold that this is completely univocal and there's no contradictions in the face of something that is so apparently to be contradictions? Or do I double down on the position that I'm in and say, no, there's no contradictions. I just have to see this in a different way than it initially hit me. So this is where, like, you believe this thing to the degree that when you see new information that you haven't been introduced to before, do you adjust? And that is, I think, where we're at, because many of us, we don't know everything of the literature, of the text, of the historicity of how the text was preserved and different things. And when we see these new things, do we say, no, I'm doubling down on the position that I already had, or do we, show some willingness to change our position?
Well, the reason I jumped up here is because we're talking about the competing authorities within a polytheistic framework or something like that. And that touches on the video I just released where...
Yes, it was a great video.
I show that you can't serve God and serve human beings. And those are the summation of the two laws. Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and body, and love others as yourself. And what happens if they come into conflict with each other. And I tend to agree, like, you have to choose one. And that'll be what kind of influences what you allow in and don't allow in when it comes to new information is by what your major presuppositions are running through life.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put a link on your video there. I seen it just came out today. It's a great video. I encourage y'all to check it out. I'm gonna put it here in the side chat.
Yeah, like I'm not entirely convinced. I haven't seen your video, just to state that out, so I'm kind of talking out my arse here a little bit, but I think okay, let me just address it this way. I think firstly, in the light of some potential contradiction, like you say, that there's endless interpretations, right? So that idea of underdetermination is rife within the theological community, right? Because they just go, okay, well, I had an idea about it, but that obviously can't be the case, so therefore I must be wrong, and therefore I just need to go back and reinterpret it, and to become back to my original standard faith-based position. Claire is a very good example of doing that, right? I mean, how many contradictions has she
washed under the rug?
Yeah, washed under the rug in order to make this kind of idea of, I don't know, the idea that everything is coherent, right? When clearly it's not. I mean, just to mention a few of the ones that BS mentioned there, right? The idea of loving God and loving your fellow human. Well, that can't be right if you think that some humans don't love God. Then presumably, and it kind of says neighbor, right? So they reinterpret it. It doesn't say fellow humans. It says love your neighbor as yourself, and then that's a more limiting phrase. So it doesn't mean all people. It doesn't mean the people of another book, right? It just means the people of your book, right? So we can get round that quite easily.
What does this unmarriageable mean?
Oh, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I try not to deal with crazy too much. Like I've had enough girlfriends on the crazy scale and crazy hot scale, fortunately for me. But yeah, so like there's that. It's just a matter of keep on to reinterpreting it. And for me, that's very much like just burying your head in the sand every time somebody comes up with a contradiction until you finally have to come up to breathe. And then you go, oh, no, I'm breathing different air now. So that's okay.
Yeah, I'm a fish now. I reinterpret air as water.
Yeah. So there you go. That's exactly it. And so like I find that, and whether that's bad faith or not, I think that's what you were touching on, wasn't it?
A little bit.
Whether that's bad faith or not, I'd like to think that it's not. I'd like to think that it's just some kind of, aberration in experience that somebody's had that's made them have this dogmatic view, which means that they'd rather hold some cognitive dissonance or two opposing ideas in their mind rather than try to unify their mind in order to make life easy for themselves, I guess, is the way I would look at it.
Let's give an introduction first, though, right quick. I'm sorry. Tavo, thank you for stopping in. I think this is the first time you've ever stopped in the channel. I appreciate you for poking in. How's it going, man?
Hey, Tavo.
Hey, everybody. Really, I'm hi to Dr. Kurt as well, who I think said hello. I'm really surprised, Robert, that you even remember. We were on a panel, but it was
you haven't been on my channel before, but
I've not been on your channel before. Yeah,
correct.
But it was I'm just flattered that you remember me because it's been so long, and I reached out some time after that, I think. But, your content's really fantastic. I check out a lot of stuff on your channel, and I'm not here for a super long time, but it seemed like you didn't have a theist up here, and also I saw Dr. Kurt, and Dr. Kurt and I have a conversation coming up on Mega Bloodbath, and I've seen some of you other folks. I've seen definitely B.S. Lewis before a few times. So
good. Well, thank you for stopping in.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the subject so far?
I mean, I'm theologically non-committed, but I'm sort of I have a proclivity towards theism. I don't know if there's anyone wants to sort of like respond or react to that. I kind of work on a degree of epistemic humility and calibrated uncertainty in my beliefs. So I always sort of try to recalculate what my likelihood ratio is that there's a God, and what my likelihood ratio is that a theology based on Jesus is a good option. So, but that's always something I kind of recalculate.
Cool.
Yeah, could I ask a question to that response? Try and maybe engage a little bit with it. So you say recalculation, right? Does that recalculation ever consider that it's it's false, that Jesus is God?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. It would be a meaningless recalculation if it were just the percentage likelihood. I mean, you can't have a probability if there's only one possible outcome.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of theists would just say, yeah, no, I take your position, of course. I mean, I say a lot of theists. A lot of theists that I've met and interacted with will say exactly those kind of words that you say, but when it comes down to it, they're just realigning the, the apparent contradiction or apparent incoherence that's been brought up to them.
Well, let me say two things in response to that. So first of all, you're probably right, by the way. But we all have beliefs that form, and our reasoning is often post hoc artifice. I'm not saying we think of it that way. Like we don't say, I'm going to believe something and then I'm going to make up some reasons to justify that. But that's true of atheism as well as theism. It's true really across the religious spectrum. Now, people have done some interesting research on this in terms of the cognitive sciences and the psychology around belief, and it's really fascinating. But when you get right down to it, we have our beliefs, we stick to those beliefs, and then we kind of come up with the reasons once we've made up our mind. But I find that to be sort of independently interesting. Now that's sort of less true of some people. Like I have a friend who's a lovely human being, or really, and I deeply respect him intellectually, but he's Muslim, and he's not really interested in even thinking about it. He's just like, this is what I am. This is my belief system, and I can't remember, but it's like Surah. Well, I don't remember which one, but he'll often cite it and say, "I believe what I believe. I don't really need to think about it, and other people don't need to think about." My beliefs, and so that's good enough for me. So he's done there. So I think some people
with the idea that you go back and you post hoc pick these reasons why. I don't think so. I think I have a list, but I think I have a list of things that I found convincing, things that convinced me of this thing. It's not like a post hoc reasoning so much as listing the things that brought me to where I am. Right?
Yeah, I think you get a little of both, though.
I mean, we think of it certainly in the framework that you're outlining. But when people have done studies and have looked at this scientifically, it seems like we make the decision first, and the reasons come secondarily. I'm not even saying that's a good thing, and I'm not even saying you shouldn't engage with reasoning, because I've been proven wrong.
Oh, you mean chemically? I got you.
Yeah. And let me say something else to I think it's Simo.
Yeah, Simos. Yeah.
Simos. Yeah. If you're interested in learning more about where I'm coming up with like numbers, it's mostly from. Oh, hi, Robin. Hello, good to see you, Robin. Robin Webster's got a really great channel as well. Robin, I just saw a really great debate on your channel recently. It was really wonderful. Anyways, if you're interested, Kurt has written about 12 or 13 articles on my CTF argument. The CTF argument is the comparative theological framework argument. And what I do there is I look at 13 different evaluative criteria, and I weigh about 17 different religions on those criteria. And the criteria that I tried to pick out are mostly based on what academic historians would use to grade historical claims. Now, no historian would ever say a religion is true or religion is false. That's not something they would ever say. But I can use sort of criteria that emulate historical decision-making and then rank order the degree of confidence in the historicity of theological claims. Sure. So that's, if anyone's interested in that, that's called the CTF argument. And I'm a professor. Go ahead.
So Tavo, my little problem with that is some of these things became prominent inside of particular groups, but their body of work or their original body of work might not be clearly distinguishable from another body of work. And the only reason that I mention that is I've very recently been reading the Life of Apollonius of Tirana, however you say it. And Tyana, there you go. So his story and all of these kind of things that follow his story, these seems to be in a kind of biographical storytelling of his events that is very similar to like the Book of John. There are some mixed bag of what I would consider moral tellings and some that are not so moral tellings that I would think that I could create better moral constructs. But like this one never blew up as a religion per se, but it's super, to me, very comparative. Apollonianism, if you were to follow kind of these things doctorially, this would be very similar to Christianity, but it just never blew up.
Yeah, so there's several things that I could say in response to that. The first thing is there are admittedly vicissitudes in the CTF argument. One of those, I don't think one of the ones you're talking about is really a huge limitation, but another limitation, for instance, is like, I by its nature, I value oral testimonials less, like, I can't really weigh those. I'm not saying that they're not weighable. There's the other problem is that there's a whole layer of subjective experience that I don't really account for. Now, in terms of Apollonius,
Hi, Wesley.
Oh, hi.
Sorry.
No, is that Wesley Curry?
Wesley Curry is in chat. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Wesley. Yeah. Hey, how's it going? I talked to Wesley for the first time a couple of nights ago, and so
how'd
Wesley,
that go?
frequent. I mean, I really like chatting with him, and I told him he's welcome to chat with me anytime. Yeah. I know he can be, he can be a little prolific. But
yes.
Yeah, I think the story of Apollonius to Diana is really interesting. The one, but I mean, if I had to put Dianaism into the CTF or Apollonianism into the CTF argument, it would probably not score very well. And I would probably take out some of the criteria that are meant to gauge world religions. But I would probably say, for instance, the first and only testimony that we have about the religions of Apollonius is Philostratus. That's the first thing I would say. Second of all, there is some degree of scholarship around this story. And hello to the Rabid Atheist. The Rabid Atheist has a really great channel as well that I've seen a bunch of videos too. Anyways, and I probably have to hop off as well. But that's probably a quick preview of some of my beliefs. Anyone else want to ask any quick questions before I pop off?
Yeah, I would just say Celsus primarily puts Antinous in the spot of the other religion that he compares Christianity to. And I actually think for many of the criteria people look for, Antinous is way better attested and way more likely to have been mostly the story we have. But it doesn't matter, because when I see the story of Antinous, I'm like, well, that just seems like nuts to me. And again, that gets back to the idea of affinity and overall reason being the slave of the passions, which I do think is true.
I give my authority to B.S. Lewis temporarily. I'll be right back.
I had one quick question about your CFT. So you're saying that you weigh it in historical context, is that correct? The 17 criteria.
That's mostly what I'm trying
12.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say mostly, you do include such things as non-historical or let me say supernatural.
I don't personally believe in anything supernatural. And I've had this conversation with a lot of atheists and a lot of people who are religious. But here's my reason for not believing in anything supernatural. Imagine that I create a universe, okay? And I know everything about that universe. I know the timeline. I know everything about how everything's going to play out. And imagine that I also write the laws of reality within that universe.
Yeah.
Right? So, now you come along and you look at my universe and you're like, and I've got everything mapped out. I've got the timeline on display and I've got the universe in front of me. And now you say, boy, wouldn't it be great if there were a sandwich for this guy who's hungry, who lives at this particular year in your timeline? Well, that's no problem for me, right? I go back to the beginning of the universe, right? And I monkey with the laws of reality and the probability statistics. And then the sandwich, essentially not magically appears, but it appears as an outcome.
Yeah, I would agree with you that those potentially could be seen as natural means. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that people on both sides of the debate have this idea that God is, holding a magic wand essentially, and then intervening in these sort of, one-off ways and, to contradict the laws of nature. And I'm like, well, why would God do that? If God indeed wrote the laws of nature, then any outcome should be a manifestation of God's own laws. So, I mean, I'll just give you an idea.
Well, no. I mean, that's explained it perfectly well for me. If you need to say more, then do, please.
Oh, the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea would be a good example, right?
Yeah.
You know, God doesn't need to use magic to part the Red Sea and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. He could have just got wind to blow it open or something. But I mean, but I think that's I think that's a bit of a fudge, if you don't mind me saying. And the reason it's a bit of a fudge is, although we can conceive that particular events could happen, which seem extremely unlikely, right? I don't think there's any contradiction there for sure. There are some things which are against what seems to be the natural laws, right? And by which I mean the descriptions that we have of how the world works, which don't seem to be for which we know of no exceptions, and in fact an exception would disprove them as laws, right? They would then just become arbitrary, right? So you're either saying, as far as I can hear, you're kind of saying, look, if some of these things, like a body rising from the dead, or a body passing through solid rock, or solid body passing through solid rock, or those are just two of the main ones, really, because I guess you can explain walking on water in different ways by a raft or something. But those two things just aren't physically possible within the governance of the laws that we currently have. And in fact, if they were to be possible in any sense of the word, then of course these things would no longer be laws. And as such, I don't think they would have been discovered the way they could have been discovered. So I think that in some sense is what I'm referring to as supernatural, not this kind of there are other undetermined explanations for any particular scientific hypothesis, right?
Yeah, and that's admittedly a weak point in my argument, and I don't really know what I think about that, but I will say that people have written about the miracles of Jesus as being manifestations of time travel and a higher dimensional being, and some physicists have actually written about this stuff. I can't remember the name of the physicist. I think it's Richard Krauss or something who's written about some of this stuff. So I mean, it's not. And I don't know that this really fully solves it for me, but imagine that I create a universe that's two-dimensional, right? And I stick my finger in one place in the universe, and then I stick my other finger in another place in the universe. To somebody who lives in that universe, I've done something that transcends the laws of nature. But
sure.
I acknowledge that I think your criticism is a good one, and I don't know.
Yeah, I've read Flatland as well, by the way, so I do know the example you're giving.
Tavo, do you tend to agree with the definition of God as being like a timeless, spaceless, disembodied mind?
I think of God as omnitemporal. So I don't know if that means timeless. That may mean just sort of maybe transcendent of the timeline. I don't like to use those terms because it starts to drift into really hokey woo sounding stuff, but maybe that's what you're getting at.
Well, I was going to attack the definition of supernatural, which basically just means beyond natural. And so if you think he's a being that is beyond the natural world, then you think he's a supernatural being.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it supernatural to act upon the universe as a singularity to produce a desired specific outcome in the far future? That's not necessarily a manipulation of the laws on a I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but on like a one-off basis. In other words, you're not really holding a magic wand at that point. You're really sort of interacting in a way that in a way that is
like a computer programmer, kind of. Are you kind of taking the simulation theory of God, where he's like outside, but he's still running a simulation or a program?
Simulation is an interesting model. I think there's limitations in that as a paradigm or as an analogy. It's like an imperfect analogy, but this is not a deistic idea. But if you're saying, well, what I'm advocating for is essentially deism, then my answer would be an omnitemporal God versus a deistic God should be indistinguishable from each other. right? Because what we would see in the natural worlds we look around us is only the playing out of the natural laws and the sciences.
Yeah, I wasn't going deism so much, but if it's a simulation type God, then he is still beholden to certain rules of his own realm, which kind of makes him not all powerful, not all knowing, not all these things. He could be a guy in a basement who's just running a simulation, where most Christians that's not emotionally satisfying for them, because they need him to be the king of kings. He's the king of all realms, not just of Earth.
But what if it's a really nice basement?
Fair argument. Well,
do you know Nick Bostrom's trilemma about like simulation theory? It's his argument.
Yeah.
So here's the problem: is that argument applies to the simulator just as it does to the simulated, right? So in other words, let's say I'm living in it. Let's say we are in, and I'll have to leave after this, but this is shaping up to be a nice conversation. So I'm sorry that I'm not going on for longer. And it's nice to see everybody. And if anyone wants to talk, you're always
reach
welcome
out to me again. I'd love to have you on as a guest sometime. I'm booked up.
Well, that's really kind of say. I'd love that. Yeah. Anyways, so the problem with Bostrom's trilemma is it applies to the. Let's put it this way: if I'm living in this universe, and I decide this universe is simulated based on Nick Bostrom's trilemma, right? And I say, well, it's simulated by, whatever entity is outside of this universe, and maybe that's a future human civilization, right? So the idea of simulation theory, maybe we're like an ancestral simulation somehow, right? So, or it's an alien, right? And that alien superintelligence is simulating our universe. Well, the Bostrom's trilemma applies to that alien's universe as well as our simulated universe, right?
Yep.
By definition. So that means that if you believe in that argument by itself, then there's nothing but shells and shells of simulated universes within simulated universes.
Yeah, I call it the super duper natural whenever anybody starts positing. I say that the first positing the supernatural realm is the first domino in an infinite regress. And I'll just
exactly. Yeah. Well, but it's not really. Is that really supernatural if we're saying our universe is simulated by a different universe? I don't know that supernaturalism. But here's the point.
Same thing with causal agents, though. You don't have to do it with like supernatural. You can do like the God that caused this universe still could have been caused by another God. And once that state starts, that God is now the causing agent. And that God that created that God could be. I mean, there's no logical reason that he couldn't. Once that new state exists, the old creator of the state does not need to continue to exist.
Which could almost go into like Gnostic theology with Yaldabaoth and all that different stuff of a creator who is not knowing he is not the only creator.
Well, I guess my point is
each reality would be an emanation on that view then.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point is this. If you extend Nick Bostrom's trilemma, then definitionally we're all just shells of universes within other simulated universes ad infinitum. Now, if there is a God and we are a simulated universe, then that at least circumvents this problem of an infinite regression. Now, do you mind if I address Saravok's question? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that.
Please do.
Saravok. Yeah, that's really fascinating. There's a lot of different arguments for simulation theory. One of the interesting things about it, it's the point of convergence from like computer scientists and philosophers and mathematicians and other thinkers. So different people have different arguments why we're probably living in a simulation. The speed of light being a universal constant is something that is talked about as that's like a processor speed. It's sort of analogous to a processor speed. Max Tegmark makes the argument that the universe is fundamentally mathematical and our experience of reality is emergent on top of that. So like essentially mathematics is a computer program and the universe is running the program. So again, that's sort of a bit of an argument by analogy. It's still sort of interesting to think about.
It's also heavily reliant on a particular view of the ontology of mathematics. So.
True.
Yeah, it's also like the world that creates the program that we live in. Is it not mathematical? And if it is not, then how does the program work?
Yeah. I mean, it's. And then Leonard Susskind and Gerard de Tooft did the whole universe as a hologram argument, which is kind of interesting. And that's not part of simulation theory, strictly speaking, but it does have implications that what we experience of reality is not really what reality is. Reality is really the ones and zeros on the event horizon of the universe. So that's another sort of interesting branch of simulation theory. Now, you have to be careful there, because when you talk about the universe as a hologram, if you look that up, you're going to run into a lot of woo stuff that doesn't really make any sense. But Susskind and Gerard de Tooft were really wonderful scientists who were quite persuasive. Well, good to see you all. Nice to chat with you. And I'll see Dr. Kurt coming up soon. And I owe you a response to your email too, Dr. Kurt. So, and thank you for all your articles also, Dr. Kurt. And Robert, I'll reach out to you via email anytime. You can also reach out to me. I stream every Monday at 5 o'clock Pacific time. And B.S. Lewis, nice to see you again. I don't think we've ever met before, but
yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I've seen you a bunch. And Simos, nice to see you too. And if anyone has any questions, I'll probably be lurking in the comment section while I'm doing homework on the side. But nice to see you all, and yeah, I'll see
you also. Good talk to you.
Likewise.
Later.
Tavo, if he's going, that's fine. But he usually live streams on Mondays at 5.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to investigate his ideas more.
Yeah.
I find him to be one of the better theists to talk to, for sure.
He asked, like, who do you think is like the best apologist? And I was like, well, I don't know if you see yourself as an apologist, but you're the only person making an evidentiary argument out there that doesn't
these days,
make any sense on the face of it. So
yeah,
I guess you.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we can all attest to here that it's an uphill struggle, regardless of how good you are. This is why it's a race to the bottom in the theist the theist apologist market.
True
It seems like, anyway, it's only the the enlightened intellectuals that have actually got some good degree of historical study or biblical study that can avoid that rat race down there below the low-hanging branches.
Yeah.
So.
But when it comes to the topic he was talking about causing infinite simulation, multiple realms, all that stuff, I think the only way that you actually escape that, if you are terribly concerned with infinite regresses, is naturalistic atheism, because then you don't posit realms on top of realms. And if you're wrong, it's still better to live like a naturalistic atheist and just live in the realm that you are living in, because what does it actually matter if there's billions of other realms going on if you have no access to them? So either way, if it's true or if it's false, naturalistic atheist is the way to live.
Yeah, I mean, certainly by Occam's razor as well. But I noticed that this is where I got to the point quite quickly with him, I think, in that he thinks that God is natural, got some kind of natural theology going on, which says that whatever happens, we can redefine it as natural, right? Even bodies passing through solid stone, for instance, it just means God goes back to the beginning and tweaks with the laws of nature in order to allow that to happen at a specific time. That's what I got from what he was saying. Now, I might be oversimplifying his view, and more than likely I am. But nonetheless, that was what I got out of that very brief conversation.
Well, the thing that I thought was, and I don't want to say disingenuous of your argument, but I will say a slightly problematic
way. Yeah, go.
And that's that if there is any creator of a thing, whether there's a creator of a program and a simulation or whatever, they want a continuation of that program to run the way that they want it to run. But that in no sense means that they cannot affect or intervene in the program that they have created to run a certain way. So the way that you were mentioning it earlier, it seems like that it would negate the laws or the order in which they structured it. And I don't think it would. If a creator created a program, whether it's a simulation or whatnot, and at some point they wanted to interact with it, does that negate the intentions of how they wanted to create it to start with? I'm not entirely sure that it does.
Yeah, it does. Yes. So
I have
because it's like using the game analogy. It's like somebody going, "Well, I'm just going to use this cheat code, right, for this one thing, and then I'm going to switch it back off again."
But people do that.
People do that. Of course they do. But notice they're now no longer playing the game by the original rules.
Sure.
And that's the analogy, right? So that's not natural anymore. They've used a cheat code, so the game has been cheated.
Yeah.
You can't get around that. And in this analogy I'm using, right, the original rules are the natural thing, and the cheat code is the supernatural thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can define it as a cheat code as being natural, sure, because it's still part of the code, right? But it's not part of the original code.
Sure.
Oh, it could have been. I mean, it could have been placed
Yeah.
in there, but somebody's had to press the key to stop the original code working.
But even if he has full control of this reality, it really begs the question about the reality that the God inhabits. Because a lot of the claims about the God are he's all powerful. He has all these different sovereignty claims. And if he's not sovereign and all powerful over his own realm, it doesn't really make him God, right? Like,
yes, that's one of my specific problems with Christian theism and simulation theory. Like, under simulation theory, there's just no possible way that the originator of the simulation would be the Christian God, because that being just doesn't have any of the characteristics we associate with running a simulation. And first and foremost is, why the fuck are you running a simulation? Like, what's the purpose of the simulation? What are you trying to accomplish? We're certainly not the reason this simulation is being done. If there's a simulation, right? There's 2 trillion galaxies. So we are not the focus of this simulation. If it's a simulation, which means that if simulation has a chance of being true, the Christian God is false. But much more importantly, I think there's a very strong inductive case against simulation therapy, or theory, not therapy, which is like your intersubjective experience with other people. Because, like, I know how graphics cards and video cards work at a very rough level. I'm in no way an expert on graphics and video or audio even. I just know it like a little bit, but I know that to get really, really good like graphics and audio, you have to spend a lot of money to get that like photorealistic and like great sound coming out. That's like costly, high intensity calculation, right? But then that means that something somewhere is doing all those high cost, intense calculations when I go to a concert on the audio and the video, which is like, great, good, thanks for doing such a great job on that. I love that. But then where is that compute coming when I'm trying to figure something out or remember where I left my keys? Like, why don't I have access to that level of compute in my thoughts when I have it for my eyes and ears? It just doesn't, it seems highly incommensurate and highly unlikely to be being running on a machine that has like a single unified processor. Now, there's a possibility you could say, well, the simulator is a dick and he gives you really awesome ears and eyes, but really shit cognitive processes as like a goof. And yeah, that's okay, sure, but that seems even more unlikely.
The most likely simulation theory is that it's experimentation. They're trying to figure out something by running the reality as a simulation. That would be my guess.
Then that has nothing to do with us.
And it has nothing to do with him being an all-powerful, all-knowing God either.
I'd also point out that there is this idea that if you're having to, presumably there must be quite a few cheats that have been added in order to make some of this stuff happen, right? And the more cheats you add, the more chance there are that there's going to be, problems with the program.
Sure.
That's the nature of programming, right? So, so there is a hidden assumption under Nick Bostrom's kind of thesis, which is that the programmer is infallible, which is just another name for God. So I'm not impressed by Nick Bostrom's work at all, because it just seems to me that he's redefining the programmer to be omniscient,
Yeah.
And I just think, well, okay, so if he's omniscient, then just call it a God hypothesis again. We're back to the same
just
situation,
the game they
the
play.
same critiques, exactly.
It's dogma.
Nothing new.
That would be a good point, Simos, to say, like, it talks about the problem of evil. Why is there anything in the reality that the God wouldn't want there in the first place if he created it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that, I can see
programmers get bugs in their system all the time. So like, that's if it's simulation theory,
not perfect programmers though.
Yeah, right. Well,
Exactly.
once you're on
That's the point.
simulation, I just think you have to abandon the Christian God. I don't think there's a way to square that circle. But
I've never seen it.
Let's do an introduction here.
I've never seen a glitch in the Matrix. Just to put
it's a black cat. Ed, the rabbit atheist. How's it going, man?
It's going all right. I was listening to conversation and remembering when I dismissed simulation theory as a Christian because an omniscient God has no need to run a simulation. Like there just isn't a need for it. They already know the outcome. So it's like, why would you do that? So I kind of dismissed it.
What's
like, what's the simulation for?
Like, I have the same problem though I have the same problem with Christianity though. Like it seems like it's all got to be for entertainment at some point, right? Because as we have mentioned before, that if he wants an end result, he could have just created the end result. And it doesn't matter if it's in a simulation or in reality.
But I dumped it as
come on, Robert. He doesn't want robots. So he just wants it run on a simulation.
I mean, you could do an open theist type theology where he doesn't know the end result of the simulation, so that's why he's running it. But then at that point, he's not omniscient in the classical sense. So he's no longer that. Yeah. And so it's just if you're going to maintain the omni God, you kind of have to dump simulation theory in my mind because there's just no point. Like, what is the point? You either have it down, I'm going to be entertained by running the simulation, but you can't sit there and say he's looking to figure out what the results are. Like he already knows what the results are. Well, so,
I think they need to drop this all-knowing, all-powerful thing in there. I think they've had a problem with it. It's not biblically consistent. Like you get a few verses in Psalms. It's like it's a song, man. Don't take song lyrics and be like, oh he knows all things. So I think it's a little ridiculous to do the position.
Theology anyway. From song lyrics is always a difficult problem to talk about.
Yeah. One of my favorite digs that I like to do when I'm talking to creation is always talk to them as if they are artificial people, because they're imago Dei, they're made in the image of God. They're technically not real boys. And so the only actual real way to actually be a natural person is to be an atheist, unless you want to be an artificial.
This is why I like hanging out with BS. He always has unique ways of putting things.
If I was made in the image of God, it'd look like this.
Yeah. All of those all at once.
No, just saying.
Oh, you kind of do look like all of those all at once, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't make it just. Well, anyway, look. I don't think simulation theory gets off the ground. I think it's an interesting something to contemplate, just like the whatever transporter paradox or whatever. I think these are interesting things to think about. Trolley problem, interesting things to think about. They can spark up other conversations and other ideas. But I think people have taken the idea and just taken it from what is speculative philosophical musings and have tried to make it into something which is more than it is, which is an actual argument, like it could be true, right? No, it can't be true, right? That's just you're not getting around solipsism that easy,
No.
The sound of solipsism is the way I phrase it. But so anyway, look, I just think anyway that the critique of supposing and imposing a hypothetical like that just becomes mental masturbation when you try to put it into anything other than just I don't know, an interesting talking point more than that, really. And he had to come up with some kind of thesis for his degree or master's or whatever he wrote it for. So why not? That's what he did it for. He didn't do it to piss people off. Just Sam Harris went, "Oh, that's amazing," and then ran with it, and suddenly everybody knows the guy's name, which is clever marketing. I'll give him that, but it's not much more.
I wouldn't hold Sam Harris up as the best critical thinker that I've ever seen.
That's right. That's Richard Dawkins.
No.
Really? I thought it was William Lane. I thought it was William Lane Craig.
That's what I'm told all the time.
Oh, Dan.
I mean, of the horsemen, Dan Dennett is definitely like the peak horseman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I appreciate you saying that all the
For
way.
sure.
Yeah,
Well, he's the only one
definitely
that
had good
actually
arguments,
has
yeah.
a PhD in philosophy, so of course you'd
Right.
say that.
And could think critically. That's beyond that. Like William James didn't have a PhD in philosophy, but he sure as hell could think critically.
Yeah.
That's the guy that came up with pragmatism, is it?
Yes, Jamesian pragmatism is far too little discussed these days, in my opinion.
So I got some pushback earlier from looks like atheist. I couldn't find the comment, but it was further up there, and I wanted to see y'all's thoughts on the subject. That he thinks that the proposition that I made earlier with that the God could have been created by another God, that it's still an infinite regress problem, that it's not solving of anything, that it doesn't come to any foundation. And I'm just curious. I just want to make one statement on the thing that. It's this state, like this state that we're in right now. Something only needs to explain this state. For you to act like you know everything else that is beyond this state of the universe is nonsense. You can't know anything but this state of the universe, and we'll be doing fantastic if we could know everything about this state of the universe. Okay, so all we need to know is something created this state, and we still can't know that something else didn't make that thing or make that thing in other states. Is the kind of the whole argument. So you could say, you're trying to get a solution to the problem, to say that we have to have something that ends the regress problem, and say no, that it has to be absolutely necessary for all things ever, this state or otherwise. That seems like you're overreaching for me.
Yeah, if you're playing chess, you don't need to know the rules of Monopoly. I mean, it's helpful to know them, but it's not necessary.
Right.
Yeah. Also, I think that the infinite regress, right? To call it a foundation, I think is a misnomer, right? It's a category error right there. And then secondly, I also think that it's a very misunderstood defense, because it's not an argument for, it's just a defense against, right? Because like it's basically it's against foundationalism, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And nobody's saying that, it's obviously the most coherent idea, but it's just saying, look, you can't rely on foundationalism if the trilemma is dogma, foundationalism, and infinite regress. Well, you can't just say black and white. Something is either foundational or dogmatically accepted, because there's a third option. That's all it's doing. Right.
What's weird is you could do something like, instead of positing an infinitely intelligent being, you could posit an infinite chain of calls and just say that calls is what everything grounds out in calls. That calls is just always happening.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this before. It doesn't have to be infinite even. Yeah. Right. Because I mean, unless you think that time is eternal, right? Then it doesn't have to be infinite. So. And even then, it still doesn't have to be infinite. All you need is a sufficiently large number of events happening for there to be a causal period, which
I think the only
apparent causal period. That's all.
The only thing I could know on this is that we don't know. We don't know. So
I mean, just the mathematics of it. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything else, right? You don't need an infinite amount of events happening in order to get some causal period.
Well, and the belief in deism shows that it's not a terribly important thing to care about anyway. Even if you were able to identify the first cause, how does that affect your life today? Very, very, very minutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love hearing them when you say the infinite regress point. Them saying, yeah, but what's at the bottom of that?
It's turtles all the way down.
Just going. I'm just saying. That's not an argument against it. You cannot use a foundational defense against the infinite regress. That's the point of it.
I always like to ask people who said that what the first or the beginning was God decided to create us, and I'm always like, what made God to decide that?
Yeah.
So there's always this ideal of this causal thing. You can play with this stupid game forever.
Yeah,
But my position for deism and pantheism is that they're just atheists who don't want to say they're atheists, because the predictions that you would have and how you would live your life,
that's probably
you're a
true.
deist or pantheist or an atheist, they're all exactly the same. And Spinoza, literally probably was an atheist. He just couldn't say he was an atheist because he would be killed. So he comes up with this elaborate system that describes how he believes in a God. But no, it's just to keep from getting killed. Why do we spend so much time on that as if it's like a serious point of view? It's just
that's the beautiful thing, Kurt, because of course after Spinoza died, the theists, right, we're all for calling him an atheist. So atheists call him an atheist. Theists call him an atheist. It's only the agnostics that think he's a pantheist.
But I was just thinking historically from a theological point of view. I know the Gnostics, I think, tried to answer this question and get it to an end point with a fully spiritual being, and then the next God is a little less spiritual, and on down it goes until you get to Jesus or whatever. Different Gnosticism forms have tried to answer this question. I don't know if they've been successful, but they tried to get it to an end point of a completely spiritual God that had nothing to do with the physicality of the world. So it's like, and they tried to do that stage by stage, but of course that has its own problems. But I think that's one of the few Christian groups that tried to answer this question, at least. The rest of them, I think, are kind of stuck. So, so it's like,
my problem. My problem with this argument is that's going on here in the chat, and I so dismiss it, and that's that.
Let me just get this here. I can't see. Go ahead. An infinite regress will break a person's brain and suck them into hell because God hates us. Oh, okay. That's nice to know. You're muted, Robert. You're muted, Robert.
Whoops, sorry about that. What I was going to say on this is, even if you say that this thing caused, let's say that there was an event that caused you to be born. Let's pick a particular event, a particular thing from your great-great-grandparents, that maybe something happened, or maybe a bow was involved, or something that it was a part of causing you to be born. Does it now need to exist now that you're born? I think everyone in here can say, no, it is not necessary for that thing to now exist. Once it makes the causal thing, it doesn't need to exist. So even if you get the problem to, it all has to ground out in a singular necessary being to exist. Okay, fine. Does that thing now need to exist? You still have the problem of, no, it doesn't need to exist.
I do that all the time with, not all the time, but often with creation. It's also like, yeah, God used to exist, but then he big banged.
Yeah.
He became the universe.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of a Stone song.
It reminds you of a Rolling Stone song?
Rolling Stone song, yeah.
And
I used to love her, but it's all over now.
You should do a video, because there's so many theists who have, if there's a big bang, there has to be a big banger. You could
just make it God.
Make a lot of very funny images with Big Banger, I think.
Well, no, I've actually
all right.
I have an argument against that. I think because because is it possible that God could make a big banger so big that it couldn't mess with an arsehole?
That he couldn't bang it?
He couldn't bang.
Yeah.
But if God is like the thing that big bangs, that's Spinoza's God for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, these 2,000 years of people coming up with excuses. There's going to be a lot of excuses, right?
Oh yes.
And as I say, some of the brightest people in European history have been theologians and apologists in particular, right? Aquinas is one, right? But I mean, there are unsolvable problems in Christianity, like the Great Schism. Okay, I mean, Aquinas was not able to bridge the gap between East and West. right? And famously, he did try for at least 5 or 6 years. Yeah, he came up with a solution. He went over to the Pope in the East, bargained a reconciliation, and then by the time he got back, like some years later, because of the time it took to get there, the Pope in Rome had changed, and he just went, "No, we're not making up with those bastards. Actually, we've one of our kings is fighting a war against them, so they chose that over reconciliation."
Of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did. And it wasn't much longer after that because of all his traveling, Aquinas died. The Pope wanted to see him apparently, so he travelled through Italy, through a winter in Italy, to get to the Vatican to meet the Pope because he'd called for an audience, and he died on the way. So yeah, that's how they.
I thought
That's how it goes.
Went a little crazy and then died. Like he just stopped writing, and then he thought that everything he'd written was a piece of shit and never wanted to have anything to do with it again. And then like a month later, he was dead.
I think he was disillusioned, shall we say.
I agree with his later assessment of his own work. I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, but no doubt he was a genius, though.
Yeah, smart man. Probably went a little nuts at the end, and then the church took over his works, and that we've been dealing with him ever since. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think everybody at some point that stands on these mass positions that they've asserted things to be this case, that at some point there's this breathing room, maybe when they're older, I guess, that they'll say, how do I really know all of this? You know, and it's a kind of a self-reflection of, and I think we've seen it in, what's her name? Mother Teresa. I think you've seen it in her letters, her writing back to the Pope and all, and some of the letters that was discussed there during her trial to be sainted, that Christopher Hitchens brought up, was like that she said that the heavens were brass to her, that she didn't feel, that she could not feel God anymore. So I think that there's a lot of people that reach this certain stage where they'll question this and be like, despite how much I've fervently argued for all of this, could it all be just in my head? And really asking themselves this question, I think it can cause some really unraveling of who they are, their identity.
Yeah, sure. I think as I've got older, I mean, this is as a result of my experience with COPD more than anything. But as my oxygen levels dropped, the amount of oxygen I could get in, and it dropped from whatever 98% or something down to I think 12% at its lowest. That's a huge amount of lack of oxygen getting to my brain, and I genuinely found that my outlook in life went south as well. So there were things that I could completely comprehend, right? So like a lot of physics, for instance, general relativity is one, right? So I know the maths, I know how to derive the equation from first principles, right? So, but there's no way I could repeat that now, because my brain was not able to keep the whole thing in one go, right? I've got little bits and pieces that I can remember, but to actually get in touch with exactly the process that you go through to get that derivation for general relativity is just not there anymore. And that's because it went the way of the dodo when my brain stopped getting the oxygen. So I think that is something that really happens to people as they get older. The cognitive breakdown is that you can no longer keep the whole thing in your head anymore. And that makes you then relook at reality in an attempt to try and get it back. And then you start like going, oh, wow, there's loads of little minutiae that I was just overlooking in order to simplify it so I could keep the whole thing in my head. Right. And I think that's a lot of why people, as they get to elder age, shall we say, look back and go, oh, actually, I probably, I thought I knew it when I was at the time, and I thought I knew all the little minutiae steps, but actually those aren't really important. And really what was happening is, bang, and in Mother Teresa's case, it's that as Christopher Hitchens puts it, she was advocating that the more somebody suffered, the better, the more likely they were for Jesus to accept them.
Yeah.
Seeing that dissonance or cognitive dissonance is quite tough on people.
Yeah.
Chest thumping apologetics is a young man's game.
Yeah. I think of it like a clinch. If you've ever had like, I don't want to let this fart out. You clinch it up and you hold it. And if you hold that for a long time, think of it like a mind clinch of defensibility that you've defended this. And at some point, I think when you get older, you're like, why am I holding this? Why am I holding this
Why
clinch?
am I holding this fart so much?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
That's a good question. That's probably the
like,
smartest question you could ask.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of let go.
Yeah.
There you go. Robert's finally had a BS moment right there.
Yeah.
That was an expert analogy right there.
Yeah. And then you get smacked around the face, and you realise why you were holding it in, because your wife doesn't like you farting in bed. Yeah. What you got to learn to do is pull the duvet up over her first, and then
Do the old Dutch oven. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then
for the Americans in the audience, a duvet is a quilt.
Exactly.
Yes, you have to explain that. You do have to explain that to us.
Appreciate that.
I don't normally get a lot of the. Most people in here are from.
It's a bot.
YouTube,
it's a bot.
Oh, is it a bot? Oh shoot.
Yeah.
That figures. The only comments I ever get from that damn platform, it's a bot.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, how you been, Ed?
Oh, I've been doing all right. I spent the weekend working on the show, so rebranding it a little bit. So
I noticed, yeah.
You've been staying out of trouble, Ed?
I really work at that, BS, but I don't. It finds me. It just finds me. I don't intend to do things. I just kind of blunder into them. It's kind of the way I am. So it's hard to not blunder into things when you're 6'4" and 275. Like there's just so many little things. Yeah, the internet. Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
That doesn't make a difference. I'm 5'7" and I still blunder into everything I can find.
I had that as a working theory. If it's not working, I'll toss it out and go with something else. But
Kurt, you got a debate coming up with. Is this a debate format or is this more of loose interlocutor conversation? Or?
It's a mega bloodbath.
My goodness.
It's how you have to
be disappointed if that was the case.
It's going to be Christian God. Does the Christian God exist? Which, given his position, I think will be very interesting. And I really do not know how he's going to approach the topic.
Are you going to go with the old, you're Christian, so you're stealing from my worldview to justify Christian?
No.
Thank you. Appreciate that a lot.
I will be arguing against the Christian God in a way that I think is a little different than the way most people do, but we'll see.
Well, you'll have to with Tavo. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I'm certainly not going to go heavy on the anti-precept arguments I used with Eli Nix, because that's...
Oh, you don't. Oh, Kurt, how disappointing.
I thought about that Apollonius thing, and the more I read Apollonius, and maybe he doesn't have all of the moral propositions that are baked into the book, but he mentioned earlier that Apollonius, we don't have any of the original ones, but the writer that wrote that story of Apollonius, he mentions 3 different writings that we now don't have. He mentions Maximus's writings that he's like, you can't trust anything that he says about Apollonius. He's like waving him away, and then he mentions 2 others that are trustworthy, but kind of not well articulated, and that he's trying to straighten out the articulation of them. So I think there are older, and I think there are contemporaries that. Yeah,
I think there are contemporary, there are citations of people who did have firsthand knowledge of Apollonius and sources that exist today, but we don't have those sources. But here's the thing with me on this whole thing, and I've watched Ed a lot, and his channel's great. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to watch Ed's shows, please go watch them. But I just think not enough people deal with Rastafarianism seriously, because Rastafarianism exists today. It's a real thing. They really believe that Haile Selassie was God. They genuinely thought that while he was alive, while he was saying, I'm not God, I am an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. And he died, and there are Rastafarians today who think he came back from the dead and went to heaven. Today, about Haile Selassie, who's a real person. So I just think like that is a pretty big piece of datum that anything Philostratus or Eusebius is writing about these people 200 years before just can't be taken with any like, oh yes, well we know this must be the case. Because imagine some Rastafarian writing just 50 years from now.
Yeah.
And he's going to write all kinds of shit about Haile Selassie that will not be true.
I don't know if you've ever seen The Reluctant Messiah or read the book on The Reluctant Messiah. I don't remember the Indian gentleman that this was based on, but he was being cultivated to be something of a Messiah character. And I think the book Reluctant Messiah was based on him. I think they did a documentary thing too called The Reluctant Messiah, that it's being hurled upon him. Oh no, that he's like a second coming, character. And he's like, no, not me. The whole way. But so, yeah, I can see where you have people that they themselves are saying it's not me, and external sources and writers are saying, yes, it's totally him.
Think about Sabotage V. Sabotage V converted to Islam to stop being the Messiah.
Satya Sai Baba.
I've actually read the Rastafarian, I would say book, but it's more of a pamphlet than anything. It's not really a very big book. And
but they have prophecies from the Bible that point to Haile Selassie, and they're like just as good.
It's got some really, really abhorrent views in it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that they exist. They have lots of followers. They take it very seriously. They believe in it strongly, and they're way earlier and way more contemporary than any of the sources that we have today.
Yeah, and they smoke weed, so
Yeah, well,
every day.
Well, there's what John Allegro's view that was also the case for the early church, right?
I love, absolutely. They found some resin, didn't they, in some of the holy incest bowls that were found.
Incense, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Incense, yes.
Yeah.
Incense.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I was thinking of Adam and Eve.
Those were the accusations against the Valentinian Gnostics, though. So we've come full circle here.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
I realize that term "reluctant Messiah" is also used in Illusions, the one with the blue feather on it. That's I don't think that's what the documentary was called, "Reluctant Messiah." That's from Richard Bach's Illusions, where the gentleman that met the gentleman that flies the plane that never has to put fuel in it. I don't know if y'all have ever read that. It's a great book, but I think that's where the term come from. But I'm trying to find the Indian gentleman I'm trying to think of here.
This is the peril of making up religions. It really is, because somebody's going to take it fucking seriously.
Yeah.
Like my great horror thought is 1,000 years from now having a statue of myself with a little black bunny on my shoulder, and being the messianic prophet of things.
It actually worked.
Don't lie. You like the ideal of it every once in a while.
They'll say that the bunny is proof. They'll say that the bunny is proof that that you're Jesus because of Easter.
All the foreshadowing of all the bunnies in history leading up to Fangs, and I was the prophet of that and became the messianic figure. Oh, Jesus!
Many have tried. That's all I can say. Many have tried. I mean, they do some. There's some strange shit that goes on in Christianity, stranger than strange. Right? Those guys in Mexico that crucify themselves every year.
That's so crazy.
You're like, what the hell? They
want to identify with the sufferings of Jesus by pretending to be Jesus. So it's
it's nuts.
No.
That's what happens when you elevate suffering over virtue.
Yeah, correct.
She mentioned something earlier about that she never did believe. And I think like when people go back as far as their memory, as a child. Like they either arrived at a location where they were already believing this thing because they were taught when they were younger and credulous, or they go back to that area and they didn't believe and it got introduced to them later. And it's like, let's say that this form of awareness of these kind of things happens at 8 years old. Well, when you were 8 or 10, wherever it happens, did you already believe these things that were, taught in your parents' religion, or did you not have a parents' religion that told you that? And I couldn't help but think of this whenever she was talking. She was like, well, I never did believe, and then I couldn't be convinced. But if you were already 8 or 10 years old and you reached this and you did believe whatever your parents taught you, then to come away from this, there has to be some kind of decision making about criteria.
Well, that'd be a good question to ask her, because she talks about her grandfather as her patriarchal, like, I don't know what to look up to, and he was a Christian pastor, but were her parents Christians? Because that would present a different dynamic. If he wouldn't be the primary person that she's learning reality from, but he would be tangential, and so she can hear it because she can keep it at arm's length and be like, well, that's his grandpa, But if her parents are reinforcing that, because you're going to believe your parents, because that's how nature works from a young age. So
I completely agree with what Robert said. I had no concept of God at all given to me by my parents, and it wasn't until I came across it in the outside world that I went, oh, what's that? And then I asked somebody, I asked an authority figure, and I looked in their face and I could see they didn't want to answer. And I was like, hang on a minute, hang on. They gave me some superficial answer, and I went home, and on the way home from school, as it happens, I literally steel-manned the argument, and I can remember doing it to this day, going, okay, so they don't mean this, maybe they mean something else, sure, because this has to mean something, because everybody's doing it, right? If everybody's doing it, then surely there's something there,
Here's maybe a good marker. Did everyone here believe in Santa Claus at one time?
Really?
I'll say immediately that I did.
I think maybe
never believed in Santa Claus that I can remember.
Well,
Never
obviously, having memory of it is a different thing. But my understanding is that I did believe in Santa.
Yeah,
but
I grew up without a chimney, so I don't think.
Oh well,
that's a big one.
Right.
I got up early in the morning. I came down, and the milk and cookies were still there, and yet the presents had been delivered. And I went,
bollocks!
My parents.
There's no way he turned down those cookies.
Parents.
I ate some of those.
Yeah.
I definitely believed in Jesus, but I didn't believe in Santa.
That's what you're supposed to do. Back then, my parents said that. Of course, Santa Claus is real. Otherwise, why would we put cookies and milk out for him?
Right.
Yeah, my Christmas episode from a few years back, it's like a half hour of just comparing Christmas apologetics to the standard Christian apologetics that are given.
Yeah.
Like,
no difference.
Instead of the empty tomb, you have the empty cookie plate and stuff like that.
Yeah. No difference.
Well, I'm just curious if it could be the case that once children reach the area where that they could, in their own mind and of their own accord, to say that this Santa Claus thing is bollocks, that if they believed in Santa Claus or believed in Jesus, or whatever their religion was before this, would it be safe? And if they were introduced to this after they had the critical faculties to say this Santa Claus thing can't be real, if they were introduced to the proposition, then it seems much more likely that it would be rejected.
Yeah,
except for adult converts, right? It's so you're gonna have to have really trying emotional problems. And that's what makes adult converts. That's either poverty or somebody's sick or you have some existential crisis. So if it's not indoctrination, it's going to be some kind of
new people in the church. Yeah, new people in the church for me that were adults that came to faith usually were involved in some sort of crisis at the time. Probably 95% of the time. Yeah, something.
Drugs or some kind of ailment. Or the bottom of their rope.
Somebody died.
Divorce, somebody died. They're having a major existential crisis and they wanted God's help. So
I think of this
problem of evil is a big thing for people deconverting.
Yeah, you've heard the old slogan, when you reach the bottom of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. I think that religion a lot of times is the knot that people tie on to. They're at the bottom of their slums, and there is this almost panting kind of, I can't do this thing. And how can you continue on in this way, in this life, in whatever it is that you're doing routinely? And then there's this proposition of, I can take all of this burden and I can put it all in the hands of Jesus, so to speak. And there, that's the sensation of alleviation.
Yeah, you also get the fact that in ministry, when I was in Bible college, I was taught to look for people that were at the end of their rope to present the gospel message. It's a dirty tactic, and you do that. When I was preaching, like when I would do a salvation message, like if you're here hurting or all this other stuff, now is the time to give your heart to Jesus. Like you're looking for people that are at their end of their rope when they're adults. You're looking for that in order to get a convert. So it's like,
that's what Jesus preaches, though. He came for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like, it's a dirty tactic. And, and then people, they connect that I got out of this existential crisis because of Jesus. And so they hang on to it. Like that experience becomes more important to them than anything else.
That reminds me of, like, I went to an Alcohol Anonymous type program that was Christian ran. And I would sit there in the group studies, and there'd be people there who've, like, 15, 20 years they've been there. And at a certain point, I'm like, aren't you supposed to get out of here? Like, isn't this supposed to help you get over the thing? Not just like this becomes your new church. Like,
I just saw the South Park episode on at work. It was playing at lunch, and it was all about AA, how it's turned into a cult at a certain point.
Yeah.
And they were bashing it as a cult.
Go to one of the Christian ran ones, and it's even worse because they're making it all about Jesus, and they're, it's horrible because it's not a recovery program. They're pitching it as a recovery program, but you're never actually technically supposed to recover.
Yeah, it's the higher, you can take that higher power thing and do anything with it. Like if you're a Christian, you can make it Christian. If you're Islam, you could take the same thing and make it Islam. Any religion fits there. So.
But we wouldn't tolerate that for regular doctors. Be like, I broke my leg. Oh, okay, well, your leg's going to stay broken for the rest of your life. Just come and go to physical therapy forever and ever and ever.
I don't know. I've never been an alcoholic, so I don't speak to that. Probably they would be better people to speak to it. But
okay, so the one I went to, it wasn't just alcoholism. It's like a broad spectrum. If you have kind of any problems, like it's very vague, and so it can bring in the most amount of people. And so it's not. I understand that alcoholism's a disease type argument, but people are there for even like quote unquote spiritual matters. Like I can't forgive my daughter for something, or I can't, this. And like,
interesting.
Why would you be there for the rest of your life? I don't understand. Like
at some point, you're going to forgive your daughter.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to heal from your wound. You're going to forgive your daughter. You're going to get over whatever brought you there in the first place. Continuing to dwell in there forever is not actually accomplishing anything. Go find another route.
Yeah, some of the things involving addiction in the church are always problematic. Very, very problematic.
I mean, I've known, I don't know if you, what was her name? Godless girl. Debated T.A.G. Anyway, long story short is she had very bad addiction problems. And, life went to shit, and then addiction problems got worse. And she was an avid atheist. I mean, would literally tear into theists like no tomorrow. Like the worst of the worst. She was
good at what she did.
Very philosophically able because she used to hang around with the pal talkers. So knew all the language and had to use it, knew all the concepts, and was extremely aggressive at dealing with theists. And then the next thing I heard that she was a theist, and I was like, oh, that's strange. And people were going, yeah, but you were such an avid atheist and aggressive at that. What happened, kind of thing. And she wouldn't say, but of course, anybody that knew her background of addiction was like, well, obviously you're trying to sort yourself out, so good luck, And I didn't want to say anything about or jump on the bandwagon of people criticizing someone going back to theism.
If I ever go back to theism, I feel like I owe the people I've been arguing for previously an explanation on why I did it.
Yeah,
that would just make sense. Like, because I don't want to be one of those I used to be an atheist folks and not be like, I gave such good arguments on the atheism side. This is what actually convinced me to turn my life around. And if it's drugs or if it's an existential crisis, feel free to make fun of me all you want. Like I earned it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's important. I don't think it's a thing. Like, you know, the way we had it put quite a long time ago now is like, if there was a switch by which you could get rid of all religion, would you press it? I think we've had this conversation, BS ourselves, but and what would you, just go around the panel? What do you think? Just doesn't matter, arbitrary.
No, yeah, yes, indefinitely yes.
There's BS.
Yeah, I would. I think.
Right.
I think we would be better without it. So.
Bert?
I would not.
And Robert?
I'm sorry, I was engaged in a side chat thing. I've realized that the atheist gentleman over here won't answer the question whether he was atheist. I think he's just has the name as a troll. So my apologies. One more time, the question.
The question is, if there was a switch by which you could get rid of all religion from the world, would you switch it?
No.
Thank you.
So
2 yes, 2 no. I say no.
We got two anti-theists in here and 3 not anti-theists. Then
no, I'm an anti-theist.
I'm against theism. Yeah. I'm just.
See, I don't know if I like the question. Can I push back on that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Probably not a possibility to do.
I don't see any benefit in not flipping the switch.
I don't want.
What's the benefit to not?
I don't want to push that switch myself so much as I want other people to push it for themselves. Yeah. Like I would rather have them do it than me. So like I think that's kind of puts me in a dilemma that if I have to make a choice, sure, I push the switch because I think we'd be better without it. But I would rather have people come to their own conclusion about religion than have me do it for them.
Okay, I'll modify the question. You flip the switch and nobody has any prior memory of the religious belief to it.
That's a different question.
That is a different question.
I would because
I still don't think I would.
Look at the difference though. Look at the Soviet Union versus Sweden or Norway, right?
I know what would happen.
Sweden and Norway have higher rates of secularism and atheism than the Soviet Union ever achieved, because the Soviet Union went about it by trying to force people to believe a certain way and indoctrinating people and believing other bullshit that was just as obviously bullshit. Whereas Sweden and Norway are just like, let's make sure everybody has a chance to get some healthcare and maybe some food. And then we will.
I'm not suggesting
design nice furniture and things like that. And if you have good furniture and things like that, maybe you don't believe in God so much.
In the hypothetical, no one suggested trauma of any sort.
My issue is that it's immoral to do that because it's against bodily autonomy. I mean, that's just that's it. It's an immoral act, right? To say
no.
You cannot have this belief.
This is
I would see myself as an ambulance driver coming across someone who's not in the right mind to do consent. I still have to administer the aid.
Yeah.
I think there's an expectation there of
if they're actually, because my argument against it,
I'm not sure that's a very good argument.
Well, my reason is different. I think that there are different people in different states of mind that they might need something temporarily, that they might get out of that state. Like we regularly call this a crutch. We call religion a crutch, and rightly so. It is a crutch sometimes, but crutches should be temporary and people should grow out of them. But there are times in which that crutch, when there's not another game in there's not another game in here that's acting as the crutch in this way. So I think in the perfect world where there's a Walgreens on every corner, that people don't get to these states and there's not all these disparities in education and everything else. But in reality, there are all of these different disparities, and sometimes the God character is a babysitter for them not going crazy and shooting up a mall or whatever.
I don't believe that. I think there's no religious benefits that can't be matched by secular benefits that are available. It's a famous Hitchens question. He asked it like to other people, like, what good thing can you do that I can't do as an atheist? And there isn't anything. So if there's, say, community's like the big thing. Everybody's like, oh, community, religion does community the best. So do clubs, so do sports, so do a lot of different secular
they do it
outlets.
better, but they're not the only ones that do community.
They also do it worse than a lot of people too.
Well, I don't think those other things do community for community's sake, whereas I think religion, in some sense, does community for community's sake.
Or they do it for God's sake because they're commanded to.
Yeah, no, yeah, but God's not real, BS.
This is why we flip the switch. We flip the switch, and that goes away.
What a revelation! What a revelation!
Perfect, Simos.
But no, I'm looking at it as a former minister. I did community for the sake of creating an atmosphere so people would come and stay. So there's an ulterior motive that religion has for creating community. Like it's underground and it's subversive.
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, a lot of people do take up Christianity because they just want the community, the local community. A church is a local based thing.
Yeah,
it's not like a sports club where you're going to go and join 100,000 people in the stands and never meet most of them, right?
Yeah, I know the origin story of my last church.
I meant participating
by a guy it was created by a guy who didn't believe in God. Okay, but he put up the money to build the church. It's still a historically marked church, everything on a corner in a small town, but he put up the money and his rationale was people need a place of community. And so believers need to have this church where any believer can come and be a part of it. And so he put up the money, built the church back in the 1800s, and it's still part of the story. And so, yeah, I can see what you're saying, but it's like, I know there's also on the religious side, there's a motivation for building community. Sure. Okay, there's definitely a motivation to keep the thing going.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like it's a both and maybe like, it's one of those things where this happens.
In this country, we have community centers, right? And they're like sports centers for kids, older kids, to come and join in, and that works the same way, right? So I'm not saying that you can't do this in a secular way, but it just so happens that the facilities are already there in this country, right? We have so many churches, right? I mean, I can't think of how many churches are within 10 miles of where I live, all of which are 600 years old plus, you know. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Okay.
And that means that every street, literally in this country, every street has a church which it can go to and belong, or at least within a very small number of streets within a mile radius. And therefore it's never going to be overrun by a too big a community that it means that there are less connections. You know, there's always some intrinsic value to keeping your neighbors safe and understanding who your neighbors are, and watch out, like a neighborhood watch scheme almost, you know.
So to the opposite of that, there's been a lot of critique about mega churches and how you can get lost in the shuffle. So there is a certain degree where like this church thing also can get too big, where the community aspect is lost completely. You know, if you have 2,000 members of a church,
I can give you behind the scenes on that, yes, because I've looked at mega churches when I was a pastor. They do have communities. It's just you get in the mega church, you get a person to join a smaller community within the mega church kind of thing. Like they have different ways. Yeah, like small groups. You can have like getting people involved in children's ministry. That becomes a small group where they're focused. Like there's a way of getting people into these different small groups, even though they're inside of a mega church environment. Like a lot of mega churches have that in order to keep the sense of community. Otherwise, they know they would lose it if they didn't have those. So, and they don't want that. They don't want to lose the sense of community because it keeps the cohesion of the body together. So that's what's happening right now is like because of COVID, a lot of these mega churches are failing because people found different small groups and didn't have to be part of a mega church. and they suddenly realized they didn't have to have the big mega thing. They could still have their community without it. So,
well, secular online stuff, it can provide the same stuff as what I'm saying. Like we've all bonded together as different groups because we all hang out around similar topics. Some of us is the hatred of
but
God.
There's a transition state, though, BS. Like all of the people that are now deeply religious and they have all of their period of time where they pray and cry and speak to God and feel some consolidation in this, that they need this presently. It's not that they can't come away from it, but to drop off like a cliff, I mean, the nihilism that people would turn to, I can't even begin to,
Well, how about instead of flipping a switch, we do a dimmer switch, and we just kind of dim it. Out.
That's called education. If you increase the education.
What's that? Doesn't Twain have one about in every village there's a fire extinguisher, the priest, and there's also a light, the teacher.
It's a fire extinguisher and a teacher. Yeah. I just think I think the transition would be just unbelievable. I think if there was one switch that I could really flip and would flip, that's an increase in education at a global level.
Well, you can't just use education. It has
no, I know it won't get rid of
young women. This is the thing. No. Seriously. No, Muslim countries have great education and they've had education for millennia, but they don't educate the women. And so this holds them back. The studies are very clear that educating men alone is not nearly as eusocial as educating women.
I think he meant everybody, but
yeah, I did mean everybody.
You kind of went to this misogynistic route.
Yeah, I don't know because I mean, there are exceptions, but like in Islam, of course, they take the education of women quite seriously.
What if they educate the kids all at the same time?
Only to a particular age. It's not to a high level. Right?
I think it would be havoc and craziness if all the kids got educated.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
No way.
You're right. You get a high school education and a 4-year-old just like that. What are you talking about, Mom? They're in complete disagreement with you.
Yeah, then religion would go away.
Yeah, for sure, right?
You do see increasing secularization with female education.
When I moved to Canada, I went into the classroom of the kids with the same age, and roughly they were about 2 or 3 years behind the level that I was at in England. It just goes to show you that, I mean, you could definitely put more education at lower levels and speed the whole process up.
I'm just speaking as a parent. I don't want my kids mouthing off to me and making better arguments than I have, because it'd be really hard to raise them at that point.
Yeah,
because I said
that's going to happen anyway. BS.
Well, I tell you what happened. I tell you what happened.
I want the slider scale, not the flippy switch.
Yes, I tell you what happened.
It's going to happen.
I tell you what happened.
Kids, it's going to happen.
I tell you
somewhere
what happened.
Around 11, 12-ish. Yeah, you're not the most important.
I tell you what happened is when I got to 7, and I went in and told my mum that I didn't think God existed, she went, "Oh no." Right, because she was Christian. Right?
Oh,
so she went, "Oh no," and then she started saying, "Well, why do you think that?" And of course, I had answers. I had counter apologetics just because I'd just been thinking about it, and I went, "Oh yeah, it's not necessary. God is just not a necessary thing, So, everything is done in nature. What's your problem,
So you think that the world just made itself, Simos?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
All right, with that, we're going to start wrapping it up. We'll go around the room. We'll start with Simos. Simos?
Oh, right. Anything going on? Yeah, no, obviously Monaco Grand Prix this weekend. Fantastic Grand Prix. And I'll be with Fabio and Lucky Strike, Lucky Wolfin, tomorrow, 9 o'clock US time, US proper world time, tomorrow at 9 p.m. doing a review of the Monaco Grand Prix. So please come by and drop me a like, even if you're not into motor racing or Formula One. Please come by and drop us a like just so I can try and get a few more viewers. Thank you to everybody that subscribed to me in the last week. Really appreciate it. I feel safe at 500 now rather than just being on the bubble, and that makes a huge difference. And and apart from that, remember to go to, is it Proverbs, guys? To see
I
Mike.
don't know.
Yeah, to see Mike after we finished on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all check out Simos. It's Simos Funk. It's at Simos Funk, I believe, is the YouTube channel. You can put the link in the YouTube side chat over there.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
I'm gonna pull you off. Take care. Ed, last thoughts on any of this, and where they can find you?
Not really any last thoughts. I mean, I try to keep things running, so I don't want to end things. No, I'm at the Rabid Atheist. Kind of rebranding the live stream a little bit, adding a few things. So weekly live stream Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So always welcome to have people, but a few changes coming up. So we'll see some of those this week. So
change ain't always bad. That's good.
No.
We appreciate it. I'm gonna pull you off. If you hang tight, I'll chat with you a little after the thing. Appreciate it, man. Before we go a little further here and I'll let the rest of them, I do want to let y'all know Godless Granny is going to be on next Sunday. She is going to be talking about divine hiddenness. That's next Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard. She'll be on this channel and we'll be talking about divine hiddenness. B.S. Lewis, last thoughts and where they can find you. Oh, I see it on the side chat. You already put it up there.
Yep, I just put Robin's beat me to it. So yeah, I just put out a video yesterday examining the conflict between loving God with all your heart and loving others as you love yourself. I've been on like a 3-month hiatus since my last video, so the algorithm is not treating me kindly. So if anybody wants to go check that out, it is, I put a lot of work into, a lot of thought. I think it's one of my better ones. So yeah, just enjoy.
Concur.
I enjoyed it for sure. Very good video there. Y'all check out BS Lewis and BS. If you hang tight, we'll chat a little after it. But I appreciate it, man. Take care.
Okay.
All right, Kurt. You're not on the YouTube thing. I think you have the
Substack.
The Substack.
If you want to see my take on the comparative theological framework, a couple of weeks ago I put up a whole bunch of posts on it, but only got one up this week. I'm dealing now with his argument from the universe having a purpose, which
that being Tavo's
very
argument,
interesting.
Correct?
Yeah, it's very interesting concatenation. But again, you can look at those if you're interested. And then I think it's Sunday we're doing a debate on Taco's channel about does the Christian God exist?
Okay, fantastic. We'll see you over there at Taco's channel. Appreciate it, man. I'm gonna pull you off. I know someone's already told me that in America I should stop using that term. I'm gonna pull you off. I guess I'll have to find different vernacular there. But everyone for joining, I do appreciate it. Next Sunday again is Godless Granny. We have the lineup on the bottom there, and we finally have Hizzle in the lineup that Hizzle's agreed to come on, and he's going to do a talk with us, which will be fantastic. But everyone, thank you for joining, and remember to stay skeptical.